What's up, guys? This is Alex Rose, and oh my god, it feels like it has been forever. It's been like 3 weeks, I think, without any videos, and hopefully I don't shock you in saying that the reason why there hasn't been videos is not because I've been too busy or anything like that. Like, didn't get crazy, like is often the case for people not making videos. The reason why is actually because the hard drive in my desktop computer, so I have both an SSD and a hard drive in my desktop that I produce on, started failing, and that was where all of my sample packs, project files, all that stuff was, not my my plugins and FL itself. That was on the SSD, so that was fine. But on top of, you know, my full-time work here since moving, I just had absolutely no time to fix this issue. I also use a MacBook as my laptop, so didn't go well. Lots of transferring around and buying other SSDs, but now I actually have a 2 terabyte SSD as well as my 256 gig regular one that I had before. So that has like my operating system and FL and stuff on it, and now I've got this 2 terabyte one, so I can just go nuts with programs and stuff. I don't have to worry about, am I allocating this to the slower hard drive or to the SSD. From now on, everything will be fast, and it's going to be awesome, and I'm super stoked for that. But yeah, it did mean that I didn't get to work on any music the last 3 weeks or make any videos, which I'm not too happy about, and I'm definitely going to need to play catch up. So, couple key things. First is my remix of In Your Place by Crescent is almost at 10,000 streams on Spotify. If you haven't listened to it yet, highly recommend you listen to it, obviously, and add it to your own playlist. That's another really easy, good way to support me. Now it's getting to the point where the majority of the streams are happening from people's playlists rather than the one I got featured in. So that's good to know. I think one of the reasons that the song is doing so well is because it got featured in a Spotify editorial playlist. So you know how there's like a bunch of different playlists for different moods and things like that. I submitted the song to be put in one, and it got put in one called Bangers. So thank you to Spotify Canada if you're in the rare chance that you're actually watching this video. That would be sick. Yeah, so that helped a lot, and yeah, I'm super excited for that. Another quick thing is I'm going to be on Alienation Radio, which is DJ ALB's kind of live streamed radio show that he does every week. And I'll be doing a 30-minute guest mix at the end of October. So October 26th, I think, is my slotted in time. When it comes out, I'll be posting it everywhere. So make sure you follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook and all that stuff. That way you can see when it's actually been released. And I recommend you go and subscribe to his channel as well, because that will mean that you'll get notified, obviously, when it comes out. So for today, though, what we're going to do is finally do a breakdown of Get It, my song with Particle. Been waiting to do this breakdown for, like I said, maybe 3 more weeks. So I'm excited that the time is finally here. But I'll be going through the song, showing you how we made it. This is different than the last 2 breakdowns I did. So, you know, I did a breakdown for the remix, and I did one for Drink as well. This is different because we actually had to bounce back and forth. So I'll talk a bit about what that process was like with Particle, and how the kind of final product came together. We're also going to be looking at the production file, not the mastering file. So if the audio sounds a little different compared to the final master, that's why, because I mastered it in a separate project. So anyways, on to the video now. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you like it, blah blah blah, and I'll see you on the other side. Alright, so we're here in FL Studio, and as you can see, it's a pretty large project file. And just to give you guys kind of a rundown of how this came about, Particle sent me a demo of the drop that you hear in the song with less layers and elements. It was just this one driving bass and kind of the percussion that is kept throughout the entire song, and we bounced it back and forth a couple times. It actually happened pretty efficiently. I think I did a bunch of work on it, sent it back to him, he did some work on it, sent back to me, and then that was it. And I finalized it and did a separate master file, but we're going to be looking at the original production file, originally it had a different vocal. So I believe after it bounced to me, I added a bunch of stuff to the drop and then bounced it back to him for a new vocal, and then bounced it back to me for finishing touches and mastering. Yeah, so it's a huge project file, and one of the things that Particle is especially good at is effects. And you'll see he has a bunch of virtual ride effects, which he's importing from kind of the dubstep world, as well as drums. So he's very skilled at incorporating those elements from different genres, which I encourage you to do. And it's something that I realized recently is a reason Loge 21 stands out so much in house music, because he actually brings in a lot of hip hop, trap, drums. So if you want to stand out, I think this is a great way to do it. A great way to do it is to start incorporating more drum patterns or effects and things like that from other genres. So in this case, we still have pretty traditional house drums going on, but we have lots of these cool Virtual Riot effects, which make it have a unique sound. But we'll go through section by section, and that way we can kind of deep dive on everything. So we're going to start with the build, which sounds like this. Or build, I should say, intro. So that's the first part, very bare, and as always, I make the intros and outros last just by stripping down the rest of the song. But we'll focus in on the drums first. So very standard kick from Evolution of Sound, very thumpy, and there's not really any real processing going on for it, other than some saturation and a tiny bit of EQing to kind of highlight the fundamental notes, the fundamental frequencies in it. And yeah, so very, very simple, some more Evolution of Sound. So these details were put in by Particle. I'm not sure if he made this loop or if he copied it from somewhere else and then renamed it, but yeah, it's just your typical additive shots, and you can do these manually. Actually, I think I might have done these little shots, and then we kind of output it into that. But let's look at the processing. So starting with, let's look at this guy. The clap on 2 is routed to a bus, and it's panned slightly. We have all of the drums panned a little bit just to create some width in the mix, and that is going to a drum bus, which is over here. And on the drum bus, which is where most of the processing is happening, we've got a compressor, some very light reverb, as you can see, but in a tight kind of drum box, which makes a more tinny sound when you do that. And I prefer that over a big wide reverb on my drums. That way, it sounds very tight, like in a drum room. Some sausage fattener, which I love to do with the color compression after a reverb to bring it out. So let's hear it without the sausage fattener. So obviously putting the sausage fattener afterwards will saturate and compress the reverb before. That's just basic signal flow stuff. And then a EQ that's doing some help with our automation. So let's listen to these. So again, no processing on it other than the drum bus, and it's panned to the left to counter the claps on the right. Very simple stuff. The next element is this pluck. And that pluck, if we go to it, it's pluck 6. It's a simplified melody that's used in the break. So I just kind of thought, this repetition sounds cool with the end. And drowned in all the reverb, it's hard to hear this kind of staccato thing going on, but it accentuates more in the break when it's left alone. And basically it's this patch, this really cool patch, pluck and pad. I believe it's from a Cymatics pack, or I can't remember if it is or if I made it myself. But what's cool about it is if you just tap, it sounds like a pluck. If you hold it and it's sustained, then it sounds more like a pad. And without its vocal, or without its mixing chain. It sounds like this. One sec. It's also routed, I think, to a bus. So it sounds very thin alone. It sounds, here, I'll loop this just so that you can hear it alone. Right, so there's barely anything going on when it's just like that. And let's find, where was it again? 26, I believe. So with reverb, it's like so far back in the mix if you turn that on. And actually the mix is, the reverb is meant to be turned all the way down at this point. So hence this reverb 2. And its EQ, again, is just kind of like an automation-based one. Now let's listen to it with the compression. So much louder. This compressor is pulling a lot of work. 18:1 ratio, as you can see, with the threshold pretty low and gain pumped. So some more EQing and kickstart to make it pump, and finally just another automation EQ. The vocal doesn't have any processing on it, but I normally would do a lot of processing, but just because it came kind of already processed. So let's look at the second half of this intro. It's a respace that I use in a lot of tracks, and it's basically just being opened up by this filter. So it sounds like this. That way, in the break, when it comes in fully, it transitions well. So there's the intro, and as always, the outro is like extremely similar, so I won't cover it later. So let's go into the break. My only wish for the song is that I would have made the break 8 bars shorter and just basically moved the build into this section here instead of over here, because I feel like it drags a little bit, and getting to the drop sooner would have been better. But the focus for the build was to create a very like atmospheric kind of dark tone, which is why we have this very hot, drowned in reverb pluck along with the respace. And as this reverb mix goes down, you can hear more of the pluck's exact, the notes it's hitting, the staccato that's going on there. And it actually mirrors the drop melody from the original drop that Particle sent me. Just introducing some, simple percussion as we go along. And this is where Particle kind of shines with his cool effects. So he adds in all these little and this kind of attention to detail is like really what makes him stand out as a producer, I think, because any G House producers can do the typical thing with the mala bass going on and add in whatever other sound design, which is kind of more my thing. I like varying the sound design, putting in lots of additive stuff, as well as having like these melodies. So for us, I think it was a really exciting track to make because we got to combine the melodic and sound design focus I have with, I think he has some fresher drop ideas than me right now. Like that's something I'm struggling with, and his effects and drums are so tight and detailed. So I thought that was really cool. I also kind of have a better idea of of song structure, and that was another thing that helped us. So for instance, when we were struggling for how do we go between this build we have, really, again, the solution would have been to get rid of these kicks and move everything to the left and done the same transition that I did. But with the way we ended up kind of teasing a drop this section, transitioning into the drop was a bit of a struggle, and so I came up with adding this cashmere alarm sound. And what I do a lot is kind of the repetition of the first part of the drop sound gets people more amped up, but it's very typical build otherwise, just with, you know, cymatics, build up drums and a fill. So again, I think what makes this drop really good, really strong and stand out is all these effects. Like if we turn all these effects off and listen to it just dry with sound design, it still sounds good. Which is kind of how I sent it to him the first time before I added in all these effects, but the effects really take it to another level that I don't think it was at before. Like even this one alone, I think it's such a small detail, but it really adds up. So let's listen to the basses alone for a bit and talk about the sound design. So the main driver is definitely this, which is what Particle sent me originally. And I replaced it with this bass from Confession Revolution 2. And it's a very cool, plucky, kind of grimier bass, and I thought it sounded good for this more aggressive style. And then I added in 3 other basses. So this one is another bass. Actually, this one was added by Particle as well. So these 2 were in the original one. I added 2 others, which is just another kind of grimier bass just to accent it. And then I added in one of my signature sounds I like a lot, and it's the additive bass from Drank. You'll recognize. And I love this sound because it makes it kind of sound like you're sucking into the next note, and I use it in almost all my songs. And then the last one is one of the variants of this Prophecy Malashami bass. And on this guy, I made sure to take advantage of the legato portamento by putting the notes, the MIDI, the way I did, so that they slide into each other right here. And I think that creates a cool sound, and it's just variations from there. I like that kind of melodic shift in it, where it's like a call and response. I think it sounds cool. The bass, or the sub, is very standard sub as always, just Theorix oscillator. Yeah, so just a sine wave basically. And so that carries out, that's pretty much the whole drop. And then we have a post drop, which is something I don't usually do, but I think in this case, when we need a transition from the break and the drop, it's good to have one. I know it's very common in like Mike Williams and Brooks to do in future bands. So it includes the sub all the way from the drop, and then just some of the additive kind of bass stuff going on to more smoothly transition. And going into the break, everything's basically filtered and reverbed and then brought back in. So just all automation stuff. Let's look at some of the processing on all of these basses, because I think that could give us some valuable insight. So if we look at, let's go back into the drop here, and we'll loop just like 4 bars. So here's the first one. Obviously kickstart and automation, EQs everywhere with just a little bit of more aggressive EQing. So this is the main guy. And then this additive. So this has a lot of stuff on it. Let's see how we've done it. So we got some distortion, compression, and some regular EQing. And they're all just EQ'd with the sub bass, sub frequencies basically removed from them, except the only one that doesn't have kickstart on it is the sucky in one. That I never put kickstart on it because it has a very slow attack, so the attack's not going to interfere with anything anyways. But I don't want it to lose power from having any kind of gain automation on it. Then they all go to this bass bus, which is very, very big. That adds some grittiness. It's almost like electric guitar distortion. Some more EQing. And then loudness from the compressor. And more EQing. Finally, some reverb. So there's pretty much all the processing that's going on with all of the basses. And then it repeats the same break and drop structure, so nothing more to talk about there. Yeah, again, like I really like the song, especially the drop and the break. Like, I think they both bring together like two great worlds of what Particle and I are both really good at. The only thing that I think we could have changed is the length of the break and putting the build earlier. That's literally the only change I'd make, but I think from now on, like, the emotionality to the break, I think it's going to make a great starter in a lot of sets. So I'm plan on using it for the beginning of sets in the future. Well, there you have it. There's the video. Thank you for watching. This has been Alex Rose. Subscribe if you haven't already. I have lots of other videos that are doing tutorial content for DJs and producers, and you might really enjoy them, as well as mixes and vlog style content. And I produce videos weekly, and I'm going to try to stick to that. Hopefully I don't have any more hardware problems in the future. I inevitably will, but hopefully not in the short term. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and happy dancing.